We are back together on the stage again.
Yeah. I think I should have brought out a photograph of we were together just before pandemic, back in the heyday of RPA. And
That's right.
I think I had you and Alistair Bathgate at the
That's
time.
right.
Remember Alistair, who was the CEO of Blue Prism, and I had to try and get them to say nice things about each other.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was
you succeeded almost.
Yeah. Well, he's retired now, so drives in the minivan around Manchester. So anyway, it's great to have you back. So how have things evolved? I mean, it's been a crazy few years, but how have things evolved for you, maybe, in the business that you've been in and in the last maybe 4 years?
First of all, great to be here. Good to see you and so many familiar faces. Always great to be in person. Phil, it feels very, very different than 4 years ago in many ways. So I think if you go back 4 years ago, we all were trying that what we were doing is worthy of CEO and board attention. I think we may have succeeded in few places, but at large, I don't think 4 years ago most CEOs and board cared about automation. It was means to an end. Yeah? Today, it is entirely different. I was at a World Economic Forum in Davos earlier this year. Every CEO stopped me to talk about automation and AI. It is a board level topic. Heads of state talk to me about automation and AI. And as we speak, the Europe Parliament is debating on AI Act. It is front and center. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
It is different if you look at just from Automation Anywhere perspective. Back then, we had 3 different offerings. Now we have 9. RPA is just one of them, very important one, but other 8. So it has expanded into a much bigger platform. I am surprised that we today run 150 million bots on our infrastructure. If you had asked me 4 years ago, I would have guessed 30, 50 million at best. 150 million bots in 16 data centers, it feels very different. And if anything, Gen AI changes that completely, right? We know about few Gen AI models, but I think there are at least 100 purpose-built Gen AI models coming in the market that are designed for very different outcomes. There is a rumor that Automation Anywhere is announcing one soon that is purpose-built for automation. I think it's a new ballgame.
That's good. You're starting your own rumors. You're starting your own rumors. I love it. But it's interesting. You talked a bit about Davos and the attention this is getting. I remember 10 years ago we had to watch Mark Zuckerberg in front of this
Metaverse.
Congress talking about you sell our data. Now it's almost the opposite, where we're suddenly seeing tremendous potential value from emerging, especially generative AI, and it's getting this crazy scrutiny from the general public who don't quite understand it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to go into an era where we're going to have more sort of government intervention and oversight, and that's going to actually pull back progress, or do you think there's going to be a broader acceptance of where things are shifting?
I think I see it in 2 different ways, and again, none of us have a crystal ball, but I think on the enterprise side, I think it is fair to say that out of 5,000 of our customers, 70% at least 70% are talking to us about generative AI. I'm personally aware of 200 use cases already working on generative AI, so very real. And we work with multiple partners there. Some are public and some are not yet. And combination of generative AI and other 9 pieces of automation we have is just amazing. It supercharges each other. So on enterprise side, there will be a lot of guardrails that we put, and I can share more later what are the guardrails. But we will get that about right. There may be few hiccups, but within enterprises, we will have a transformative experience. I think the challenge is more on the society side, and that is where government will have to do something about. I don't want to scare people, but the think about last time we used AI at scale was in social engagement models, right? We decided to engage, in social media, so there was AI at scale. What did we got out of it? We had a mental health crisis with teenagers. We had democratic interference, election interference. In my view, it accelerated polarization of the society. This was AI just engaging us. Yeah? Who would have thought a like button would cause that? Yeah? Now we know. Now imagine AI generates a content and AI engages you. You have to be careful. This is about unintended outcomes in the society, that what do we do about that? And as a technologist, this time around, we can't say we didn't know it like we did in social media time. We now know it. So that is where governments will have to do something. It's a challenging thing. You don't know what's going to happen, so how do you regulate what you don't know what's going to happen?
Exactly. It's tough, isn't it? So we talk about a productivity crisis. I guess we've been going through this for a long time, but do you think we've come close to solving it?
I think the motivation is the highest I have ever seen. So let me define productivity crisis. So the bigger question is, why do we care about all of this technology, right? Why do we care about generative AI and automation and better, cheaper, faster? It is about a lot more than that. So if you think about the world, the entire world and all institutions operate on growth. And there are only two ways to grow. More people working and existing people producing more, otherwise called a productivity increase. In most of the Western countries, there are no more people working, and for next 20 years. So you have no longer growth happening through the population increase. So your entire growth has to come from productivity increase. The way math works today is we have to produce 50% more productivity out of existing people just to hit our GDP targets, right? Now let me tell you how challenging that problem is. It took us computers, mobile devices, internet, and every software ever written to produce the productivity we have today. Does anybody have an idea how to produce 50% more than that? And if you don't, then there is not enough to go around, and there are more riots on the street, right? So when I talk to heads of state, they come and tell us and say, Mihir, do something, because there is only so much to go around. Whoever does more riots gets more money. So what we are talking about is far more about just automation and AI and productivity. It is about operating equitable societies, right? And if we don't do that right, we will have a challenging time. So very important that we get that right. I think AI and generative AI and automation holds a great potential. I'm sure there will be other ways, new metal and energy sources and whatnot. But right now, on Davos, when I was there is nothing else on the table except AI and automation. Yeah, that's what we have.
Nothing else. It's okay. So, when we started looking at RPA, we started looking at different types of technologies, machine learning around it. Obviously, we talk about this very rapid emergence of generative AI with the launch of GPT-4 in particular has made a huge difference. Is this a continuum, or is this more tools in the box, in that digital toolbox of productivity and value creation capability?
I think it is a continuum, but from an executive perspective, it has gotten people's attention. So as you and I know, not many CEOs or the CXOs know all the processes. They can't tell a difference between 50 process automated and 500. It's not, that happens somewhere in back office or some other part of the world. Generative AI has captured their attention. It is the self-driving car of our world. So, and CEOs are able to tell, I'll speak for myself, out of many things I do, I'm probably average in 8 or 9 things. Generative AI will beat me on that, right? So it will produce better PowerPoint presentations, not particularly my great skill. So CEOs themselves are able to see that, hey, if it can replace 5 things I'm doing, this must be true. So now they understand the new operating model that an automation and AI will drive. This is our opportunity to grab their attention and tell a cohesive story that is end-to-end. And that is where the power is. So let me take a call. We were talking about call center earlier in the session here. If you apply generative AI to call center, the external study shows that you get about 14 to 15% productivity gain because you can generate emails automatically and so forth. If you do the rest of automation toolkits we and others have, you get about 20% productivity gain. But when you combine them together, it supercharges the operating model. So we have a customer that is working today where, take an example of use an airline example. Everybody can relate to it. When a request comes to, let's say, cancel or change something, generative AI will process the email. The rest of the automation technology, including RPA, will operationalize across 6 systems. And then generative AI will take back and send a warm email back. All of this round trip in 2 minutes. 80% of all call volumes end-to-end automated in a next generation call center. Right? This is 14% here, 20% here, coming together to produce 80%. This is the power of supercharge of 2 technologies. Yeah. So it is a continuum, but let's grab the attention of the leadership. This is that moment.
Yeah, I mean, we completely agree. I think that the impact on CX and call center is probably going to be most impacted because of the abilities, and the sheer cost of customer service of businesses is very high. So when we got all excited about automation back in the day, and we still are, obviously, this was about taking humans out of loops they shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Like getting people out of stuff that you really shouldn't be doing, focus on more interesting things. Gen AI is about bringing humans back into loops.
Sure.
Where we can take advantage of their decision-making skills and their prowess and their judgment. So where does this ultimately land, and how does this ultimately affect people and the skills that we're looking for the future?
So there is a definite need to have human in the loop. So some of you have seen this on a news cycle, that generative AI tried to convince somebody last month that it's year 2022. Generative AI was convinced. So it's obviously a need for a human in the loop, and there are many such examples. So a validation, a guardrail is essential. And most of our implementations are heavily focused on guardrails today. So that is true on one end. On the other hand, it is also true that I have personally seen a case of a junior banker in a large bank where this person is excited to be on a Wall Street's ideal banking, investment banking route, and seeing 70 to 80% of the job getting automated. I have seen in Silicon Valley programmers, so I have seen a non-programmer use generative AI to produce code, and a 20-year veteran programmer saying, how about you do this? And say, yeah, I already did this. And say, how did you know? It took me 20 years to learn. And say, yeah, generative AI. And I'm looking at this person's face after 30 minutes and say, what happened in 6 months? I had 20 years experience programming things. So that's also real. So it has a need for human beings in the loop. On the other hand, it will change how many of the jobs as we have seen them before.
Yeah.
I think one thing I'm certain about, look, you always overestimate technology in a short term and underestimate in a long run, right? So in RPA time or other time, we said people had fears about jobs going away, and so people have similar fears now. But one thing is certain, that you will definitely, a human will lose a job against another human working with automation and generative AI. That much is certain. And that applies to every knowledge worker, including a CEO. If another CEO and his team working with generative AI and automation, this CEO will lose a job. That is clear. One more thought. I think based on things that I have seen, I think it is real enough. Do we know everything? No. I think there's a cost of knowing everything, which is you're too late. So I think in my opinion, working with multiple generative AI models, reimagining new operating model is a no risk decision at this point. It is in the right direction, although we don't know everything, we know enough to do something there. That would be my 2 cents.
Interesting. I was talking last night about, someone was mentioning there was this machine driven by generative AI, which had been taught to program itself.
Yeah.
So we started talking about Skynet. And
so about that, one of the things we were discussing with European governing bodies on AI Act, and one of the things we suggested is to tag every generative AI content with the tag that it's generated by generative AI. Because imagine, because there are 100 more generative AI coming, each one generating gazillion amount of content, and each one consuming each other content, you can make it believe into anything. So maybe one approach is to tell other generative AI not to consume other generative AI's content because it has a tag in it. So there you go.
I guess one way of doing it. And I mean, GPT-4, they can tag where the contents come from.
Yeah.
Which is important.
That's important. Yeah.
But then there's also stuff like, someone the other day was doing a search on me, and it turned out HFS was founded in 2006 by one of my former employees. So he must have had it on his CV somewhere, and it was floating around.
But what you're pointing out is, like it says, Automation Anywhere Generative raised the capital in 2015 when we raised it in 2018. Now, this is not a hard thing to get it right, and so there are still obvious things that are some glitch somewhere.
Absolutely. So, you talked about our rumored things maybe changing in a couple of months, and I'd love to know, like, who are going to be the winners and losers in all of this. You've founded a number of software companies, I think, prior to AA, yeah. And AA has obviously been a major drive, and I think it's been the most downloaded automation product of all in the world ever. But who's going to be the winners and losers as we look at where things are shifting now, where the money's coming from, where the investment's coming in?
So I think this vertical purpose-built generative AI models are going to be exciting arena. So I mentioned lots of things that we are doing already in generative AI, but the future of generative AI is doing things and not just chatting. So we're going to announce it on the 1st of June, and I'll not reveal everything. But what we started thinking about 6-8 months ago is it possible to train generative AI models to tell generative AI that look at a delivery receipts, match it against invoices, and if it is less than 100K paid, could generative AI execute this statement? Now, this is far more complex than generating a Python code, because what I just described to you goes across 3 systems, and this kind of things are at the heart of what we call enterprise processes. And as you imagine, we are in a unique position with 150 million bots running, and we work with about 15,000 applications. So arguably, we know more about doing things than anybody on the planet. So as we started feeding some of these things, it is exciting to see how these models are emerging. Now, you can I'll leave it at that. But those kind of models, and again, they evolve fast. So imagine the difference between 3.5 and 4. They evolve at exponential rate. But those in different industries are a very exciting arena to watch for. I think in the partner community, our view is, and you probably have an even more informed view, Phil, but partners who were doing large-scale operation but very low domain knowledge will have to rethink operating models, in my view. And partners with vertical domain expertise have a significant advantage if they can leverage this. On a customer side, customers who are reimagining their operating models are going to be winners. So what we are seeing is, let's say, let's look at the entire IT industry. So we spend about $4.5 trillion on IT worldwide. Most of it does not increase any productivity. Sorry if you're in IT. It does not. We keep lights on and keep upgrading systems and projects and lots of IT projects, but it keeps the world in the same place. So what businesses are doing is that, can I take 20% of that budget, that's about $1 trillion, and put it in this top layer, this experience layer that we talked about, what we call a system of work. A system of work is set of generative AI, automation technology, process mining, service now, many other things, not just us, right? So, but all this entire system of work template that actually produces productivity gain, so that now you can take that money and put it somewhere else. Business customers who are reevaluating operating models that way are the winners. If you're number 3, you will become number 1. If you're number 1, you will outperform your competition. And every single software company, I think definitely will have more competition, will be in the space. They have to be.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the ability to automate generative AI, it's incredible. You could, for example, you could have every 1 hour an automated query into GPT around stock performance or industry performance, that sort of thing. You can start to really, you've got that sort of balance between humans in loops, humans out of loops, and an automated loops of intelligence that you can actually control because you're using maybe specific large language models. You can have regular automated feeds of information that are piled in. It's very, very exciting where this is all heading.
And in every industry. Yeah. Like I was watching it in pharma, there is an opportunity of 50 billion pharma drugs just on a generative AI models. There you go.
Yeah. It's you can almost set your own agenda for not just constantly posing questions, but having it automated and done for you on a constant basis. So the direction of travel is very interesting. Now, maybe to finish with, you've spent a lot of your life in the world of venture capital, private equity, and you know where the money comes from, you know where it's going. You know, we had a bit of a wreckage of the PE market last year, and now we've got this incredible traction around Gen AI. Where are you seeing the next round of VC money coming from, and where do you think it's going to go?
I think VC money is chasing, as you probably everybody has heard, that it's chasing generative AI now, like it chased other things. The problem in VC money is that everybody bets on everybody bets on 1 or 2 players. The problem is there are hundreds of them, so they end up betting on 200. There is no way for all 200 to succeed, so that's the betting game. So part of the market always gets overhyped, but as somebody said in the first day, hype is good because it's about hope. So as long as you understand that's a good place for it to be. I think the new operating models around generative AI is leading Wall Street investors to change their valuation models. So the rule of 40, which is 20% margin, 20% growth, is now being talked about rule of 50 or rule of 60. Wow. If that changes, none of us have a choice but to do something about it, because the investors will, once they start comparing you to with somebody else with the rule of 50. So, so that is where the investors will push everybody, and especially after Silicon Valley Bank and many other bank crises, the entire investment community has shifted to this higher margin model. So that is another reason why everybody is pushing for automation and generative AI. I can share, without naming names, I think many large public companies are talking about a word called extreme automation, which is automate 35 to 50% of all work. And it is, I don't know how much of that is, I mean, we'll only know when we do go about it, but the fact that the CEOs and boards are dreaming about it is saying something. It's all coming together.
Yeah, the intersection of generative automation. There you go. It really is. Well, this has been most fascinating, and I know, how are we doing for time, Elena? Not great, okay. Okay, do we have time for maybe one question?
Was that your and mine report card? That's what we just had?
Yeah. There we go.
Mihir, thank you for
Good to see you again.
Excellent comments. So as you think about your platform and bringing more AI automation as a part of a platform, would you be using generative AI models in your platform and offering that as a service for clients? Or are you still not sure that that's the right place to go?
So that's a great question. So we already use that today, right? So we are a partner to OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Vertex.ai, Amazon Bedrock, although Bedrock is not generally available yet, and few others. So internally, we have a chance to see which one works better, and certain places where one works better than the other, and everything is evolving very fast. That's all available today, live, functioning, real-world customer example, hundreds of them are possible. What I was talking about is the next revision of this, where we have our own generative AI model that's able to, you can give a request and say, I want a process executed across cross-application. How much of it can generative AI can execute? Not just tell me how to do it. Can you do it? And that is early days. I will set right expectation, but you will see very soon how much of that is real and working.
Let's take one more. If anyone has one.
There we go.
Yeah.
Which industries are on the cutting edge? BFSI, healthcare, where maybe in these two industries, which one's further ahead?
I think it's about the leaders, is how I see it. So there are leaders who are taking charge of extreme automation and new operating model. I've seen it in supply chain, where large companies with $50 billion supply chain reimagining operating model and having $3 billion impact. I have seen oil companies do that, saving 30 cents on a barrel that saves $5 billion with generative AI. And BFSI, for many reasons that we know, has a huge opportunity. I think it's a leadership moment for us and every leader about who can navigate through this. I think in the first day, maybe it was Sanders who said that 50% of employees think that their career is in the hand of the company, which is not right. My take is it's in their hand. But we have a responsibility to lead our teams through it, and some will and some may struggle.
So it depends on the management as opposed to the industry necessarily, is your view.
Yeah, and I think in healthcare, amazing opportunity. I think on clinical side, generative AI is not reliable yet enough to risk lives with it yet, my view, based on what I've seen. You know, a front page New York Times article on one wrong clinical assessment. But amazing opportunity there. But on an administrative side, gazillion things on healthcare, right? I mean, claims and all kinds of administrative things, huge opportunity.
Yeah, and on the research side, I'm seeing quite a lot of interesting things happening. I was looking at a app the other day. You could literally ask for stock advice, and you could even ask about like presentations in Wall Street and how they were impacting stock, and it was incredible the amount of information backwards and forwards it's getting immediately around stock movements and things like that. We're also launching an LLM for HFS next month, where we actually have all our research tied into a specific search model, so you can actually ask questions. You know, I want to know the history.
That's awesome. I'll use it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we talked a bit about it yesterday, but we're going to launch that very soon. But that will change. If you've ever gone to a research website and tried to find anything, it's a bloody nightmare. Right? We hope we could do this a little faster than Gartner can. So. Anyway, this has been wonderful. It's been great catching up.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you.
I look forward to see what's going on. Thank you.